Okay, here we go. I'm Amy Ratto Parks, and I am the composition coordinator at the University of Montana. And I want to respond to the second to last question you have on here. How can resistance be framed as a positive force within writing program administration? I think it's really our only choice to reframe it as something positive. And I guess I'm drawn to that question because I have never identified with a kind of negative victim story about this job. And I have a job that other people consider me a victim for. I have friends that say, why do you stay in a job where you have, very little? I have a year-to-year contract. I'm an adjunct. And my answer to that is, I guess, happily that I don't identify with that. And I really feel like writing itself is a form of resistance against silence, resistance against the loss of memory, whether that's institutional or cultural or personal, resistance against passivity in general. So those of us who are running programs that revolve around a kind of writing that really teaches those lessons authentically to students, to all the students that aren't necessarily, they aren't coming to our classes or my classes in particular to find their better selves or find their poetic voice or read Charles Dickens. They're often resistant themselves in coming to our classes. There's a sense of resistance from students. There's a sense of resistance on some levels, budget, in terms of budget, in terms of contract, in terms of what we're actually able to do in our administrations with the courses we're allowed to offer, the number of students we can serve, all of these things which feel like constant pushback. And I understand that this is why, of course, this is why this feels like it makes perfect sense to me. Why shouldn't the administration agree with me? Why shouldn't I have all the money and tools and research capabilities that I want to have? Why wouldn't everybody want to help their students the way I see that my classes can help students? But I also feel like that is somewhat part and parcel to all of my colleagues I see in this department. I don't by any means want to say that everybody has a hard luck story, but in our department, everybody is pushing and pulling. Everybody's pushing and pulling for money and classes and student caps and all of these things. The difference for us is that when we go back to that kind of, for us, institutional memory, we have a group of people who consider, comp studies as this, not even secondary, as something that just feeds all of the other programs. And so, to me, I guess when to answer directly, how can it be reframed as a positive force? Well, I really think our jobs are much different than what people often expect of, a literature professor or professor of poetry. There is something more grassrootsy and utilitarian about what I'm teaching, and I take a lot of pride in that. I love teaching poetry too, and I love teaching literature, but what I really have passion about is this sense of resistance. That's part of what I enjoy about this, that I feel like it's a little secret that I have about teaching that other people don't understand in our department. And I guess it sounds silly, but that knowledge of what I have actually seen happen for my students is what keeps me going along in what is actually kind of continual administrative resistance. I guess the last thing I want to say about it is that I really agree with Angela Lunsford's argument that students are writing more than they ever have, but the way they're writing is boundary pushing, it's genre blending. Even the students themselves aren't really understanding exactly what they're doing. They are just writing continually, and it isn't what we have, up until now defined as academic writing. But we are in a position to have real power in harnessing that and teaching students that what they are doing can be something that can be powerful and can be used as a form of resistance themselves, a form of communication, to say the very least. At the same time, I think this is also informing the resistance coming toward us. Students are just frittering away. They're already doing all of these things, so why don't we just funnel comp studies into all of these different places? There was a recent article in the AWP Chronicle about just funneling, an argument for making composition studies a part of just a part of creative writing programs. And I think that the whole field is trying to figure out what to do with what students are bringing to us. And I just really think that our form of resistance has to do with helping that become a powerful thing and not something that just gets dissolved out into other disciplines, and holding on to rhetoric as something we're studying, not something that just gets dissipated into all of our other disciplines in a way so that then students don't recognize the full power of the tools they're being given. I guess I want to make sure I've answered this whole question. I think finally, I guess I want to say, how do we reframe this negative victim persona, and how do we make this a positive force? I think a lot of this has to do with how we represent ourselves with our colleagues, the stories we tell to our colleagues, how we're talking about our students. Often I find myself going to these really pedagogical conversations with other colleagues about things like plagiarism and student apathy and writing skills and how terrible it is what the students are coming in with. I think that just promotes a story for them about our field that is sad and kind of hard knock, and gosh, isn't it hard to be doing composition that must be so depressing, when really that isn't what I see in my classroom. Those are just the easy gossipy stories to tell. And I find if I change my story, if I actually just change the story that I'm telling people, I think it changes how they see me and my job. Maybe that's naive. But I think that at the bottom line, if you can't communicate how much you love what you do, then nobody else is going to change how they see what we do either. Thanks.